Good afternoon and welcome to the last event of the LPEA in 2020. Today will be a special webinar because it will be split in two parts. The first one will launch our new GPLP interview series, which will be continued each month from 2021 on. And here we will then discuss with Claus Mansfeldt, Managing Director of SwanCap Luxembourg, what SwanCap has experienced this year, a little bit about their strategy, and lots of personal things too. In the second part of the webinar, it will be Claus, as president of the association of the LPEA, who will share with us his insights about this very strange 2020 year and also about the future of the association. As usual, don't hesitate to ask your questions. You have either the chat button or the Q&A function. We're very happy to take your questions later on, and also wanted to finish with some nice goodbyes. Okay, then let's kick it off. Our new GPLP series, which might also get a new interesting name in the future. Let's see. So Claus, hello.
Hi, Stephane. Thank you for having me again on this. And I realize that people have attended many webinars by now and might be looking forward to a webinar-free break. So we will try not to keep you too long, but nevertheless, we are really keen to announce this new series that we're going to have for 2021.
And promised, as just mentioned, we will let you enjoy your Xmas holidays over the next days. So, Claus, what can you tell us about SwanCap? When was the company created and what's the specialty of your firm?
Okay, very briefly. So SwanCap is a private equity fund of funds and co-investment manager, and we manage about 3 billion. And we are basically a spin-out from UniCredit Banking Group in Germany, Italy, and also in the UK, where I was based earlier. And we spun out in 2013. And set up as one of the first AIFMs here in Luxembourg. But we have a bit of a longer history than that, going back to about the year 2000, doing the same type of business on balance sheet within the banking group. So about a 20-year track record, which has delivered about 16% IRR on about 6 billion invested cumulative during that period. So that's the short version. The specialism we have, I think, if we're to pick one particular thing, it's probably co-investments. So we've done over 100 co-investments, with leading GPs in Western Europe and North America. And that's a particular activity where you not only pick the fund, but you have to kind of dig deeper and also really take a view on the particular underlying deal that they are putting on at that particular point in time, where you also have an opportunity to do these extra co-invests. So that's what I would say is our specialism.
And you also mentioned the AFM in Luxembourg. Is all your substance here, or do you have other offices in Europe? Where are the other locations?
Yeah, the other locations mirror a bit this, where we came from in the spin-out. So actually our headquarters is in Munich. We have offices in Milan and New York as well, covering North America. And Luxembourg is the AFM as mentioned, and so group-wide we have about 25 professionals. We are 7 here in Luxembourg, and in addition we have 2 in our branch in Milan. So we are a little bit unusual in that we are not only one of the first AFMs in Luxembourg and Europe, but we're also a cross-border AFM. And one of the reasons for setting up the cross-border AFM was due to some local peculiarities, enabling our colleagues there to work more freely within the regulatory environment interpretation or in Italy. So hence they are directly actually under us as an AFM. But otherwise we have a fairly, let's say, traditional setup amongst many international GPs at least, with let's say a lot of advisory provided from our mother company abroad, but we have a pretty significant substance here already in our own right.
And also to rebound on your first comments, always a pleasure to host you, Claus, be it here now for this GPLP series, and also your colleague Andrea, who attended then the E-Insights conference and shared also his wisdom with us. Yes, please, sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay. 2020, very complicated year, as we said, COVID-19 everywhere, disrupted lots of things. What were the challenges for your company and for your operations?
You know, I think it was just adjusting to very quickly to the, you know, to the digital work routine, which happened pretty quickly and relatively smoothly, but more importantly was perhaps the challenges of staying in touch with our key business partners, whether they are the underlying GPs that we invest with or co-invest with, as well as, of course, maintaining a fundraising pace. We're almost constantly in sort of fundraising mode in our business, and that was a bit testing. I think it was not really a problem staying in touch with your existing, clients or counterparties. It was a little bit more challenging to engage in the same depth with new partners or new investors. So, but what was encouraging was that investors did not give up on private equity and our offering, and they sort of remained with the agenda, and we actually closed the fund above target in August 2020, and we also launched a new fund already in 2020 in September. So we had quite a good momentum there, but there were some delays, I must say, in terms of decision making, etc. So we probably got delayed with a few months.
But despite that adversity, then a good run, and then a great fundraising. We include certainly also the delays. What about the due diligences? Has everything switched to digital, or as you mentioned before, also with the existing contacts, it was okay, but not with the same depth?
No, I mean due diligence. It's still perfectly okay digitally. Everybody has adjusted to it. What you miss perhaps a little bit is, well, you do miss some of the between the lines interpretations you make of a manager or even a co-investment management team, which you can, the body language that you can best pick up in an actual meeting, and other ad hoc observations you make as well. But we are, however, mainly one step removed from the see-through underlying company level and their facilities and their physical presence. So for us, it was probably a little bit easier. For the underlying managers, you would have to go out there. But as we all found, once we got used to it, we could actually go and visit each other. Yes, we observe distance rules and we wear the masks and all the rest of it. But in a way, we've been able to function quite well, I think, overall. I mean, as a society and as an economy. Unfortunately, now we are into another lockdown, but so some of these meetings perhaps are not so easy anymore. But nevertheless, it has, to me, worked reasonably well.
Some real good going. Great. And any takeaways, lessons learned on your side? Is there anything you would change in the future, taking into account this very specific year?
Well, listen, it's going to be more tech. It's going to be more virtual. I think bottom line is that, we've tried it out now in a massive way. We accelerated the future a little bit. It was sort of predicted by many and by people a lot smarter than me that this is coming, and it's just really been accelerated. And we're not going to go back to a situation as if COVID and lockdown and digital working never happened. It's it's perhaps a matter of the degree by which we go back and mix physical back into the mix. But I think we are, there are so many benefits that it's very hard, and efficiencies that one can have with the digital solutions that I think they're here to stay to a very large degree. So that's a lesson from all this. You know, meetings, I mean, that's quite interesting how meetings, you know, I don't know what your experience is, but, you know, we have meetings, you know, we like meetings as humans, I think, and whether we have physical or e-meetings, one of the advantages of e-meetings is that, you know, those who cannot behave in meetings and always are on their phones, you can't necessarily see them, and they don't make a noise when they're tapping away because they can always mute. So, you know, but of course, it's also quite frustrating to notice that half the people on your e-meeting are actually looking on another screen and are not really with you. So I'm not sure which meeting in the end. You could say that's quite efficient because then they can pay attention when needed, but otherwise execute some other work. So it's curious to see how that will play out and what our preference will be. There are some pluses and minuses, but yeah, meetings are always going to be a bit of a question mark in terms of overall efficiency.
Let's take those hints into account and also try to drag the attention back then to us.
Let's always try and look at the screen and
absolutely
maybe place your other device just under.
Exactly, and then pause it and focus on the things happening right now. Great. But we share the view, I mean, that hybrid should continue in the future. I mean, there are lots of opportunities, efficiencies with the digital channels, but we should also allow the human part also back into the game, also potentially in the second part of next year, if we would talk about now bigger events, etc. Good. Then let's become a little bit more personal, Claus. Can you tell us, where are you from? What did you study? And how did you enter the private equity and venture capital space? But you highlighted already a few small things.
A few small things, but yeah, so, you know, despite, I think, 28 years in London, I'm told that I still have a relatively strong Nordic accent. So I was born in Norway. I have partly Danish blood as well. So that's my background, but as I mentioned, lived in London for a very, very long time, studied there, and then I studied economics at LSE, and then I went into the city working in investment banking, and I got introduced really to private equity via my time at Nomura, where I was almost 12 years, and they had a pretty active principal investments division, and that's where I ended up, from really being in the corporate finance side of things, and that then sort of whet my appetite for, let's say, for private equity. Although the deal making in those days were more bespoke merchant banking, like sometimes structured minorities and the like, not really plain vanilla buyouts as such. You could say that became more the area I got involved with once at UniCredit, where I mentioned earlier we spun out, and they had a very significant leveraged finance business, and then they built a sort of investment business next to it in the sponsors' underlying buyout funds. It was kind of an adjunct to the leveraged finance business, and there were some synergies in understanding risk management, actually, and comfort that allowed that business to grow inside the bank as well. And that was what then got me involved really with the more classic buyout private equity, and then ultimately spinning out in SwanCap.
Yeah, sounds like a great career, and also quite robust experiences in different entities, mostly in London and then coming to Luxembourg. Any advice you would like to share with the young talents in order to join our industries? What can they do? Study or try?
You know, first read up and just figure out if you really want it. I mean, that goes for any career, which is a bit of a dilemma for young people, because how are you supposed to know very early what exactly you want to do for the rest of your life or whatever? And by the way, nothing has to be forever. You can always change direction during the journey, and that's perhaps one piece of advice. Don't get stuck. Don't get into a rut. Move on. The world is full of opportunities, and you will always shine a bit more. You will always enjoy it a bit more if it is effectively an area you're passionate about and want to do. And you find over time what you're natural at anyway. But yes, make sure that you want to do it, and then first protocol is to learn all the tools of the trade, not necessarily the tricks of the trade, but you will learn that on the job. But certainly learn the tools of the trade as much as you can. And then lastly, I would say aim high. Aim for the best firms, which is a bit subjective, but the most successful, or whether they're big brands or there are those who are more boutique but have a fantastic record, or are very specialized and within that specialism have a great niche. But try and go for those who are best within any of those areas, and ideally perhaps those who are a bit specialized on it. Why? Because in my experience, business is easier when you're working for the best. It's you always have a seat at the table if you come in with a big or relevant brand or business card, and you will be you will be a candidate for the deal, and the deals will find you even. So what is hard is to get in and stay in those organizations. But once you're in, deal making is easier, and you actually have a higher chance of a successful outcome of the business you're going to be doing. So that's why it's all worth, unfortunately, the hard slog to qualify for the tough entry criteria for the top firms. But give it a good shot as much as you can. It will make life easier as you go.
Thanks for your tips, and we completely acknowledge that hard work should also be one of the strong ingredients, and also be decisive and do it with passion. We have that career page on the LPEA website. I mean, if people are interested to have a look at that in order to discuss with the best in class, I mean, that's always feasible. And now just a last quick question for you, Claus. Do you have a preferred book, a life philosophy, or motto?
That's a big question, but I'm a tennis player, and there's one wonderful autobiography by Andrea Agassi, and Andrea Agassi, sorry, and it's called Open, and it has many fascinating analogies, let's say, to business life. The way he really, in a very transparent and brutally open way, describes his troubles and challenges, being as a young man trying to get onto the circuit, basically coming up against physical and mental challenges, even resorting to, by his own admission, to the traps of drugs, and having a bit of a setback in his career, but pulling himself together, coming back, finding meaning and purpose, and excelling again. And on top of all of that, actually at a young age, mid-career, also actually finding space for charity. I found that extremely inspiring, the way he really displayed those things. Not sort of after he's become a multi-billionaire, but actually mid-career, and he's not a billionaire anyway, but you know what I'm kind of alluding to. It takes something else perhaps to be charitable throughout your life than at the end of your very successful career. So that was quite inspiring. So yeah, it's a great read over Christmas. It takes you away from certainly from COVID and lockdown, and I can only recommend it. It's called Open by Andrea Agassi.
Thanks for that tip too. Claus, because I'm also a tennis fan. And so if we all remember well, he was the kid in Las Vegas or of Las Vegas or the bad boy. But he was also the first one in the modern era of tennis to win the 4 Grand Slams, which then only the 3 other monsters right now, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, have done so easily afterwards. But a real example. Thanks for that too. So then I think we are done with that GPLP series. Today is the initial one. We will continue it, as we said. And now we will move on to the 10 years, 10 minutes. This one, no tears, is the last one of the entire series, since it will also soon be the last days of 2020 and then the end of our 10 years anniversary of the association. So welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you. Gotta wear the other hat now. Yeah.
Exactly. So 2020 was again a very complicated year. We mentioned it. I mean, despite the pandemic, but many, many things happened. What are for you the 3 key moments in 2020 now from the LPEA angle?
Apart from sort of the medical side of things and the COVID side, which obviously is very present out there, but linking a bit to just our business world and asset management perspective as an association, watching the market crash in March was pretty interesting. 25-30% market collapse. I guess I've seen 2 or 3 of those in my very long career by now. Of course, now I have more hindsight and experience and whatnot. Not to suggest that I saw anything coming, and not to suggest that I know exactly what to do about it. And that's what's interesting, though, is that how you're being challenged when there is such a situation. Is it the end of the world? Is business over? Should we still continue to do something? Should we should we do something dramatic? Should we be optimistic? So I found that very interesting moment, actually. The end of March during the market crash was just a fascinating moment to be challenged on how you try to rationalize what's going on, and to see whether you think this pandemic is going to be permanent or not, or lockdown is going to be permanent or not. And then very quickly, what really happened afterwards, that the markets decided that it's not going to be permanent. But now, of course, we are facing sort of, a third wave maybe coming through. And I think also in the markets euphoria this summer, they might not have fully discounted that possibility. So let's see what happens in the new year now. But of course, we have the hope of the vaccines, etc., helping us out in 2021, and the markets are taking that in a stride. So I would say that's one. The other one was what I alluded to earlier, is just how I had to go digital. I had to open my first Zoom account and get proficient in using it and inviting people. And it was actually good in a way. It forces you to start doing something you perhaps should have done a long time ago. And it's also interesting. I remember back in the day when I was doing investment banking, I covered a company in Norway called Tandberg, which was known for is speakers. It's very advanced sort of acoustic speakers in the 70s, but they branched into video telephony in the 80s. But of course, it was a bit like having the first and only fax machine. You kind of need a few more people before it's of any particular use. And of course, also you need broadband. But I remember 20 plus years ago, or more than that, almost 30 years ago, talking with the chief executives, being shown the prototypes. So the technology was already sort of evolving, but it's taken this long to really become ubiquitous, which is interesting. A reflection also about, whenever you think about doing tech investments and the new thing, just be sober about perhaps the application time that it might take. Yeah, what else? No, I think otherwise, business will be the same, but we came into then the autumn, where the third thing I would mention would be the American election, and not so much, all the emotions perhaps around the highly personalized, let's say, election campaigns that we observed, but the way in which we were given a kind of a forced lesson in in the intricacies of American government and of American governance at the political level, to a much greater degree than perhaps most of us have ever before been bothered to even consider. And now we're going through the motions here, and it's quite interesting how it's all been constructed and how we are learning all about it and how people designed this, whatever it is, 150 years ago. Checks and balances. So for all the noise, those checks and balances seem to be working. So that I thought that was the third takeaway from this year, which was quite significant in terms of lesson, perhaps.
And those are for sure three key moments of this year, because I mean, the private equity industry and venture capital industry have shown again their resilience, but there was some uncertainty for a short moment. And also on the digitalization side, as you said before, this was on accelerated access to the future. So let's see how we can cope with that also. Any projects, endeavors you're particularly proud of?
Well, listen, speaking now on behalf of the LPEA, I've got to certainly mention the way the association went digital, and did it very, very quickly. And managed to remain relevant and active in a digital form straight away. And I think we owe a lot also to your predecessor Raja, who really took very strong action on making sure somebody was out there communicating and sharing experiences and content. And if we couldn't do it in our physical calendar agenda of events, we did it digitally, and that's been carried on in a great way by the team. And you've, as the new CEO, have inherited this and are also proving to be very proficient in the digital communication agenda of the association. So I'm very proud of that. The other thing I think, which perhaps we'll get to, is the sort of refurbishment of our governance arrangements, where we were able to execute our various governance, very important governance milestones during this lockdown and during and utilizing digital means.
Cannot agree more that thanks to my predecessor and the team, I mean, those new means have been completely integrated in our new multi-channel communication strategy. And it was even lots of fun to be constantly innovating, trying to find new angles, new shows, new titles, etc. So let's continue like that, and also integrate potentially then also a post-COVID world afterwards. But I think that was a great step. You mentioned then also the governance. I think as we discussed in the past, 2019 was a strong year for the promotion of our industries. 20 then probably very important year for the governance, I would say. And then institutional synergies and partnerships, digitalization for sure. How do you see now 2021 in that whole setup?
I think it could be the year of lobbying. There are a lot of significant events coming up on the regulatory side, affecting our business framework within the European Union, within the context of Brexit, within the context at the national levels as well. So, we have things like AFMD 2, as we call it, being revisited at the level of the EU Commission, and with inputs now being sought from all stakeholders, and we want to make sure we are an active contributor to those considerations, and doing so also in synchronization with our sister associations, whether it's Invest Europe or other associations more locally, and of course with the government agencies as well. So that's that particular agenda. Then we have at the Luxembourg level, during next year, further work going into upcoming legislation revision potentially for tax and corporate law, and we also want to make sure that we can be constructively contributing to considerations there. And again, I think it's not that we haven't been active before, but I think we've gone through a period of rapid growth, promotion, as you say, governance, modernization, and now we happen to have a couple of huge sort of milestones coming up in terms of the operating environment, and we need to do lobbying around that. And I think it'll be exciting to work with all our fantastic constituents and members who are, you know, cutting edge, basically, in terms of legal experts, tax experts, regulatory experts, and to make sure that we try to sort of consolidate our best possible inputs and speak as much as possible with one voice, also for maximum impact.
Thrilling and intense times ahead of us, and you know, our appetite to create new synergies, have bridges with other partners, and also certainly push further the activities around public advocacy, and certainly also the thought leadership with the different committees, different consultations, etc. So that we will certainly pursue with lots of strive and energy. Our motto, or one of our raison d'etre, is certainly to promote, represent, and defend the private equity and venture capital industries and our members. Any strategic developments you would think of could be done, implemented in 2021? Are we missing something? What could we add?
No, well, I think what we could add is to probably optimize even more the way we communicate, you know, our inputs into the what we think are the best framework parameters for running this type of business. So whether it's at the EU level and also at the local level, and both within each other's contexts as well. So you know, Luxembourg has a fantastic position, and we want to defend that, and we want to make sure perhaps also that you know, we are at the forefront, we are efficient. I mean, we're a relatively high cost domicile, so we have to be seeking efficiency. And efficiency, whether it's through technology, whether it's through breakthrough in things like tokenization, or you know, whatever it might be, that can lead to higher degrees of efficiencies within our fund administration processes. That could be very exciting if we were at the forefront of that. In addition, you know, access is one of the mantras we have, I think, within the association, in terms of broadening access to our private equity industry and private equity returns, which, you know, seem to be on average continuing to be delivered at a premium to average public market. So it would make sense, and we are both at the regulatory level, plus mix that perhaps with technology as well, and try to promote that and explore that more to bring in more investors into the asset class. So those would be some of the things that would be big on the agenda 21.
Sounds great. Let's optimize further, digitalize, and also become even more than institutional. And also, I would just add next to that, also the attraction of talents should not be forgotten, and can also be very interesting in the future to push further than the value chain of Luxembourg as financial hub. And there, for example, the training academy of the LPEA or with other partners could be one of the angles. Great. Since this is the last 10 years, 10 minutes interview, we are reaching now an end. Are there any specific wishes for our community members, association, and the Luxembourg Financial Hub you would like to send out, Claus?
No, I mean, listen, it's been a fabulous 10-year anniversary. I want to thank everybody who's contributed to this particular series of member interaction, and also interactions with a broader audience. We've certainly opened the door for that as well. And I think, you know, the individual contributions made by a huge constituent of our membership is very much appreciated, and we hope that continues. So I wish everybody, I want to thank everybody, and I wish everybody well, also going into 21, not only in terms of physical health, but hopefully also we will be able to stay sane as we continue in various forms of lockdowns and restrictions on our previous sort of freedom of mobility. But you know, at the end of the day, we have to just be grateful that we still live in a wonderful part of the world and we are doing well. And you know, I've been reflecting a little bit during this period about how maybe it was somewhat elements of this, what it was like to be in the Second World War in Western Europe. Of course, nothing at all as dramatic as they had to experience, but nevertheless, at an average civilian level, it was living with restrictions and going into multiple years and a bit of an obviously uncertainty for the future. Thankfully, we are now not at all in anything comparable, but it's curious to see. And when you look at it in that perspective, the little light lockdown inconveniences and curfews and so on we have to experience, you know, are really a walk in the park by comparison. So I think if we take such a big perspective on things, then we should all hopefully come out well and stay sane. Yeah, and then lastly, I just wish we can all meet physically again. I mean, nothing at the end compares, certainly in terms of our networking at the end of the day. We can have meetings, we can be very focused on business in digital form, but it's we certainly miss the slight little social aspect to our professional networking. And rest assured that we will come back with a vengeance as soon as we can. And with that, perhaps over to Stephane, who's running the agenda for the year, and any messages you might have to wrap up today.
Thanks a lot, Klaus, first of all, for your presence and for this very nice insights and for taking the time. But I wanted also to conclude with the same idea that we should all be thankful to be here, and we are very lucky. So let's stay safe, really. Let's take into account the opportunity given here in Luxembourg. Let's continue to work hard in the right direction and continue to push our financial hub, private equity, venture capital sectors in the right direction with the new generation cohort of talents coming up. Let's show them the way. Let's try to integrate them in that new world, which is really, in my eyes, one of the most interesting ones, because it combines both the financial and also entrepreneurial spirits. And that's exactly why we are here. So from my perspective, that would be really my main message. We are very, very happy to be here with you and to be able to further expand the association and the industries. So continue supporting us next year. And also, if you have great ideas, don't hesitate to contact us. We have always an open ear, even if we play tennis somewhere else. And we should continue that collaboration in the future.
Okay, happy holidays, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye, and see you soon.